Union Pacific's Big Boy was hailed as the undisputed titan of American railroading. Then a rival emerged that threatened to erase its legend. In the 1940s, Chesapeake and Ohio's experimental steam turbine promised to outmuscle Big Boy, captivating the industry and casting doubt on everything crews thought they knew about power and reliability. But what truly happened when this risky challenge hit the tracks? The answer would determine which giant deserved its crown, and it would expose just how fragile a reputation can be. Designers at the American Locomotive Company faced a daunting challenge in the late 1930s. Union Pacific demanded a locomotive powerful enough to pull heavy freight over the steep 1.14% grades of the Wasatch Range, a stretch where ordinary engines stalled or required extra helpers. The solution came in the form of the Big Boy, a machine that pushed the boundaries of steam technology and sheer physical scale. The Big Boy's frame stretched nearly 133 feet, from coupler to coupler, dwarfing anything else on the rails. Its wheel arrangement, classified as 4884, was a marvel in itself. 4 pilot wheels up front guided the locomotive into curves. 2 sets of 8 massive driving wheels transmitted power to the rails, and 4 trailing wheels at the rear supported the enormous firebox. This articulated design allowed the engine to bend around tight mountain curves, a necessity for the rugged terrain between Ogden and Green River. Inside, the Big Boy relied on 2 sets of reciprocating pistons, each driving its own set of 8 wheels. Steam from the boiler powered these pistons, transforming boiling water and coal into relentless forward motion. The boiler, one of the largest ever mounted on a locomotive, could deliver enough steam to generate over 6,000 horsepower. Crews worked beside a firebox wide enough to roast an ox, shoveling coal or operating mechanical stokers that fed the constant appetite for fuel. Union Pacific set the bar high. The Big Boy had to haul 3,600 tons of freight up the mountain grades without assistance, maintaining speeds that kept trains on schedule. In practice, the locomotive exceeded expectations. Official tests in 1943 recorded Big Boy pulling 4,200 tons at a steady 18 to 20 miles per hour, consuming 11 tons of coal and 12,000 gallons of water per hour at full throttle. These numbers were not just impressive. They redefined what a single locomotive could accomplish. Every element of the Big Boy's construction reflected the single-minded focus of its creators. From the articulated frame to the massive cylinders and the robust suspension, each detail served a clear purpose: to conquer the mountains and move freight faster, farther, and more reliably than any engine before it. In the world of American railroading, the Big Boy became the new standard by which all other locomotives would be measured. Railroad crews assigned to the Big Boy quickly realized they were working with something different. Engineer Walter Dean, who logged thousands of miles between Ogden and Green River, once described the locomotive as sure-footed and steady, even on slick rails in the heart of winter. Firemen praised the evenness of the ride, noting how the articulated frame glided through tight mountain curves without the shudder or sway common in smaller engines. Conductors and brakemen, too, trusted the Big Boy's ability to haul heavy trains up steep grades without pausing for breath. Railroad trade journals of the 1940s echoed this sentiment. The pages of Railway Age and Railroad magazine carried glowing reports calling the Big Boy the king of the mountain and the pride of American motive power. Photographs of the engine barreling through snowdrifts or cresting Sherman Hill became icons of industrial strength. Writers marveled not just at the raw numbers, over 6,000 horsepower, 135,375 pounds of tractive effort, but at the way the engine delivered on its promise year after year. In the toughest territory the Union Pacific had to offer, stories spread among crews about the Big Boy's reliability. Some joked that you could set your watch by a Big Boy's arrival, even in a blizzard. Others recalled how the engine's steady pull made it possible to run longer trains without helpers, reducing delays and cutting costs. One mechanic remembered, You'd finish your shift, and the big boy would still be out there, pounding the rails, not missing a beat. The respect wasn't limited to those inside the cab. Railroad reporters, industry photographers, and even rival railroad men came to see the big boy in action. Their articles captured the sense of awe that surrounded the locomotive. The big boy did not just meet its design goals, it became a symbol of American engineering at its best, earning the trust of everyone who worked with it. This reputation would set the stage for every challenger that followed, casting a long shadow over any new claim to the throne. Steam locomotive enthusiasts and industry insiders in the 1940s found themselves caught up in a wave of excitement. Headlines in Railway Age and Modern Railroads touted a bold new contender from the Chesapeake and Ohio Railway. The press latched onto the promise of something extraordinary, a locomotive powered not by the familiar churning pistons, but by a direct-drive steam turbine. This was more than a mechanical curiosity. It was billed as a leap forward, a machine that could leave even the mighty big boy in its wake. Journalists described the new Chesapeake and Ohio project with language usually reserved for the dawn of flight or the first transatlantic cable. They wrote continuous torque delivered straight to the rails. No more pounding rods, no more hammer blow. The turbine's smooth rotary motion was supposed to eliminate the violent stresses that plagued traditional engines. Industry experts painted a picture of effortless acceleration, with power rising steadily as speed increased, a stark contrast to the surging rhythmic push of reciprocating pistons. The idea was simple in theory. Instead of steam pushing a set of pistons back and forth, it would spin a turbine, like a giant version of those found in ocean liners or power plants. This turbine would then drive the wheels directly, converting heat and pressure into motion with fewer moving parts. Advocates claimed this would mean less wear, fewer breakdowns, and greater efficiency. Some articles even suggested that the turbine's ability to maintain high speeds for long distances would make it the perfect engine for the post-war era. Trade publications ran glowing features on the Chesapeake and Ohio's vision. Editorials speculated that steam turbines could spell the end of the reciprocating engine, just as diesel electrics were beginning to threaten steam itself. The phrase "future of steam" appeared again and again. Railroad men who had spent decades around the deafening roar of pistons and rods wondered if this was the dawn of a new, quieter age on the rails. Chesapeake and Ohio's publicity department fueled the fire, inviting reporters to tour the new locomotive's workshops and issuing press releases filled with technical promises. Diagrams showed the direct drive layout, with arrows tracing the flow of steam from boiler to turbine to wheels. Brochures boasted of reduced coal and water consumption, claiming the new design would outpace the big boy in both muscle and thrift. The message was clear. This was not just another big engine. It was a revolution on wheels, and it was coming fast. The buzz reached beyond the industry. Popular Mechanics and Scientific American ran features on the turbine principle, with illustrations of the new engine cresting mountain grades and hauling endless strings of freight cars. Readers wrote in asking when this technology would be seen on their local lines. The locomotive's unveiling became a national event, with railroad fans and skeptics alike eager to see if the promises could be kept. For a brief moment, it seemed as if the future belonged to the turbine. The press, the public, and even some seasoned railroaders were swept up in the momentum. The big boy, still king of the mountains, now faced a challenger not just in size or strength, but in the very idea of what a locomotive could be. Chesapeake and Ohio's boardroom buzzed with optimism in the early 1940s. The promise of turbine power wasn't just a matter of engineering pride. It was a financial gamble. Executives pored over projections from their technical staff, who pointed to controlled lab tests showing the new locomotive's turbine could deliver a steady flow of power without the pounding stress of pistons and rods. Calculations suggested that, at least on paper, The M1 could match or even exceed the big boy's tractive effort, all while using less coal and water per mile. The numbers looked enticing. Engineers estimated that the turbine's continuous rotary motion would reduce wear and tear, cutting down on routine maintenance and costly overhauls. Fuel efficiency projections suggested a locomotive that could run longer between stops, saving time and money for Chesapeake and Ohio's heavy coal trains. These claims weren't just technical boasts. They were the backbone of the business case presented to the company's leadership. Chesapeake and Ohio's Capital Committee authorized a limited pilot order, approving the funds for a small batch of these advanced locomotives. The investment was significant, with each unit costing far more than a conventional steam engine, but the board saw it as a necessary risk. Industry analysts were predicting a post-war freight boom, and the chance to leapfrog competitors with a revolutionary locomotive was too tempting to ignore. Testing began in controlled settings, with dynamometer cars measuring every pound of pull and every gallon of water consumed. Early results supported the bold claims. The turbine could maintain high speeds with heavy loads, and the datasheet showed impressive fuel economy under ideal conditions. Engineers and executives watched as the locomotive's smooth acceleration and lack of hammer blow suggested a new era of railroading might be within reach. Industry publications picked up on these performance figures, running stories that compared the turbine's projected costs and outputs to those of established giants like the Big Boy. The numbers told a simple story. If the M1 could deliver in revenue service what it promised in tests, it would change the economics of heavy freight for good. With millions committed and reputations on the line, Chesapeake and Ohio's leadership placed their bet. They ordered the first units and prepared for a future where the old rules of steam power might no longer apply. For a moment, the gamble seemed poised to pay off, and the industry watched closely, waiting to see if the revolution promised by the turbine would hold up beyond the test track. Repair logs from the Chesapeake and Ohio's Huntington shops told a story at odds with the headlines. The M1's turbine system, so promising in theory, became a headache for the crews tasked with keeping it running. Mechanics faced a machine that demanded constant attention, with bearings that ran hot, seals that leaked under pressure, and a drive system so unfamiliar that even seasoned shopmen needed new training. The locomotive's availability hovered below 40%. For every day it spent on the main line, it spent 2 or more days in the back shops, waiting for replacement parts that often had to be custom-made. Shop supervisors, used to the steady rhythm of maintaining conventional engines, found themselves buried in technical manuals and scrambling for answers. The turbine's variable speed system, designed to deliver smooth power at any speed, strained under the demands of heavy freight service. Engineers reported surging temperatures and unpredictable performance as the locomotive struggled to maintain steam pressure under load. Each attempt to push the M1 to its advertised limits resulted in fresh mechanical complaints, worn turbine blades, scorched insulation, and oil leaks that left the shop floor slick and hazardous. Fuel and water consumption, once projected to undercut the Big Boy's appetite, exceeded expectations in the wrong direction. Instead of sipping coal and water, the M1 burned through supplies at a rate that alarmed accountants and frustrated operating crews. Coal tenders emptied faster than planned, and water stops became more frequent, slowing schedules and erasing any theoretical advantage. The maintenance logbooks filled with entries, turbine alignment checks, emergency bearing replacements, repeated calls for technical support from the manufacturer. Each problem solved seemed to spawn 2 more. The reality on the ground was impossible to hide from those who worked the night shifts. Shop crews knew the M1 was a marvel in the shop window, but a burden in the real world of steel, steam, and deadlines. Stacks of faded reports and carbon-copied memos filled the archive tables, each one promising a piece of the real story. Historians sift through these records, comparing official performance summaries with handwritten maintenance logs from Chesapeake and Ohio Huntington shops. The numbers in the glossy annual reports paint an optimistic picture. Claims of 7,500 horsepower, reduced fuel costs, and record-setting hauls. But as researchers line up internal documents against public statements, inconsistencies begin to surface. One set of shop notes details a week spent replacing turbine blades, while the corresponding monthly report lists the locomotive as available for service, a subtle edit that shifts the narrative from reality to reassurance. A closer look at tractive effort figures deepens the puzzle. Chesapeake and Ohio's published tables tout horsepower at high speeds, but omit the lower speed tractive effort that mattered most for heavy coal drags through the Alleghenies. In contrast, Union Pacific's dynamometer tests for Big Boy are preserved in full, showing 135,375 pounds of pull at 35 miles per hour, an advantage of over 25,000 pounds compared to Chesapeake and Ohio's best numbers. The horsepower gap, favoring Chesapeake and Ohio at 7,498 versus Big Boy's 6,290, appears impressive until cross-referenced with actual train speeds. Freight rarely exceeded 40 miles per hour, a range where tractive effort, not peak horsepower, determined success. Production records tell their own story. Only 3 of the advanced Chesapeake and Ohio units ever entered service, and all were withdrawn by 1950. In contrast, Union Pacific built 25 Big Boys and kept them on the rails for nearly 2 decades. The paper trail, when scrutinized, reveals more than just technical rivalry. It exposes the limits of selective reporting and the reality behind the headlines. With each document, the gap between promise and performance becomes harder to ignore. Innovation drives progress, but history shows hype alone doesn't outpace proven engineering. Today, as new technologies promise to disrupt the rail industry, the lesson endures. Bold ideas demand rigorous real-world testing before rewriting the rules. Reputation is built on reliability, not headlines. The tracks to tomorrow are still shaped by what actually works. Share your thoughts below.